Uncle.
Welcome to A2 TV. This is In Times Like These, and I am Nana Watson. Tonight, we're going to look at a diaspora child living with an African parent and their perspective. What are some of their challenges? What do they go through? Being in a land where everything is free and easy, yet the African parent want this child to live according to some set of traditional and cultures, having their own rules at home. You can't play, you can't do all the stuff that your peers are doing. We're going to take a short commercial break and we'll be right back.
Uncle.
Tonight we have in our midst Miss Esther Taki, and you're watching In Times Like These on A2 TV. A diasporan child who grew up in an African home and what some of her challenges were. Welcome, Miss Esther Taki.
Hello.
Can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Hi, my name is Esther Taki.
And what do you do?
I'm a registered nurse in
Are
New
you-
Jersey.
Are you still in school or you done?
I'm still in school.
What are you pursuing?
I'm pursuing my doctorates in nursing.
Wow. How was your upbringing in an African home?
It was very strict. We had a lot of rules. Yeah, it's very
Rules
strict. Like you can't go out as much. It was more like you would have to go to school, come back home. Go to school, come back home.
as an African American living with typical Africans, were some of the culture practices making you feel uncomfortable with your peers if they were to come home with you?
Not really. So when you're younger, you're not really realizing that you have different cultural differences from your friends until you get to middle school, high school, and you start to realize that how you grew up is different from how your friends grew up. So like when you're in elementary school, the only thing that will be different that you notice your culture is different is the food. If you bring your lunch to food and all the kids are making fun of you. But as you get older, middle school and high school, and you see that your friends, their parents are more lenient. You get to go to school dances, you get to do school activities, but then your parents want you to come home. For my example, my parents wanted me to come home after school. It was a bit difficult because I wanted to relate.
Were there any other stuff like religious wise that were affecting your upbringing, or your parents were strictly traditionalists? It was just about the African side, or they had to force you to church or mosque or stuff like that too?
Yeah, my parents are Christians, so we would go to church every Sunday, Bible studies, praise dance, all of that.
So, what were some of the problems that you actually encountered at home?
Encountered at home?
Yeah.
The freedom to not hang out as with your friends as much. I think my parents were very scared of the world around them. So there's this like you don't know who is going to be influencing your child at school. You don't know if your child is going to be with bad influences or good influences. So to just take away any influences, you just tell your child to go to school, come back home, go to school, come back home. So that's it, just the freedom to not be able to hang out with your friends when you're younger, socialize, learn different cultures, because here you have like Indians, you have Hispanics, but you're just stuck in this African culture.
Which or what of the culture, the part of the culture made it difficult for you? What were the problems you're having with this culture you're talking about?
The only problem that I had growing up was the you're not allowed to go and venture out. You're not allowed to be who you want to be, right? Um, so you don't get to explore who you are as an individual. I know, like me and my friend, she's Nigerian. Well, she was born here, but she's also Nigerian. We both had very strict parents. So the way that we felt was that we weren't allowed to really express who we are as individuals. So when we got to college, when you're far from home as a college student, you get to actually explore. It's kind of eye opening. You finally have to realize what you like, what you don't like as an individual. And those are things that I feel like most children who weren't brought up in an African, like a traditional African home, don't get to experience. Because when you're from a young age, your parents are like, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be an engineer. And what if that's not what you want to be, right? So, yeah, as we got older, it's just like now I'm a college student. I'm getting to explore what I like, what I don't like. What if I don't want to be a doctor? What if I don't want to be a nurse? So yeah, that's the one thing that I had a problem with, is like now I'm getting older and I'm supposed to know who I am, but I don't know who I am. So you're in this what's it called? Personality, like you're fighting who you were brought up versus who you want to be when you grow up.
So, when you brought in college,
Mm-hmm.
when you got to college, did you relate to other African children or other Africans? Were there Africans in your school in the first place?
Yeah.
And did you relate to them? Or you were more leaning towards the American child?
So most of the Africans, they came straight from Nigeria. They came straight from Ghana, straight from Kenya. So I couldn't really relate to them. Even with the kids that grew up here, like the African American kids, I couldn't even relate to them either. So it was more like kids who grew up in the situation that I was in, where their parents came here and then they grew up in America and they had to figure out who they are as an African child growing up in America. So they're the only ones who really understood what I was going through and how I felt. But yeah.
So it was like you were not uh, an African,
No.
and you were not sort of an African American.
Yeah.
You were in between.
I was too African for the African Americans, and I was too American for the Africans. So yeah.
And again, in college,
Mm-hmm.
did your parents, when you were growing up, like you brought up, did they influence what you were going to study?
Yes.
Oh wow, your parents. Okay, can you give us a little bit into that too?
Yeah. So like I stated before, I feel like a lot of African parents, they just want their child to be so successful, right? The goal is just to be successful in America where there's so many opportunities that are given to you that if you don't take them, you're wasting it, right? So you have to be successful, right? So to be successful, what are the most successful jobs that African parents always go for? You have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, an engineer. Those are the three big things, or an accountant. So the four big things. So my mom influenced me to become, I wanted to originally become a doctor, but my mom influenced me to become a nurse because she felt like that's a way for me to gain money easily so I can help the family out better. Everything is more, what I've noticed is that everything is for African, not even for just African cultures, but for like Indian cultures, Hispanic cultures, everything is very family oriented. But when you look at an African American point of view, or you're looking at the white point of view, everything is very individualized. So when my mom told me to become a nurse so I can help out the family, it wasn't shocking. It was like, I'm just doing this to help out the family. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're raised to do. You're supposed to always help your family, right? But the American point of view is you get to do what you want. Everything is very individualized. You're in your own corner. Everything's tunnel vision. You're just thinking about yourself. So yeah, my mom did influence me.
And did you regret the course you took?
No, I don't regret it. So because of course you're in this you're in a land of opportunity, right? To me, it's like I've always said I wanted to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, plans change, right? So that doesn't mean it's stopping me from not becoming a doctor. At the end of the day, I'm still going to graduate with a doctorate degree in nursing. There's still going to be a doctor attached to my name. So even though I wanted to be an actual doctor, God changes your plans, so then you end up becoming something else, but it still aligns with the plans that you also had to. So I wanted to become a doctor. I'm still going to be a doctor. I'm still going to be diagnosing. I'm still going to be treating. I just have to take a different path.
Wow, you mentioned God.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Christian?
Yes.
Was that also something you wanted to be, or that was also put on you?
Um, I don't. I don't see it as something that was put on me. I just grew up in it. So again, when you're a child, it's not like you're realizing that you're just put in certain things until you get older. So as a child growing up in a in a Christian household, it's not like I felt like I was being forced to be a Christian. It's just what I know. Bible studies, choirs, going to church every Sunday. It's just what you know. So when you get older, you either accept God for who you are as an individual or you don't accept God. And that's a decision you have to make.
We're going to take a short break and we will be right back. This is In Times Like These, and I'm Nana Watson. In Times Like These is being sponsored by Lord I Can Home Care LLC, where we send in trained aides to care for your loved ones who are homebound. We also do pop-in checks, take people to your appointments, shopping, cook for them, help them with ADLs, and everything in between, light housekeeping, laundry, and being a companion. So if you needed any care, you may contact Lord I Can LLC on 609 424 9786. 609 424 9786. If you're in aid looking for a job, you may also contact Lord I Can. Click or call. If you want email, it's nwatson at Lord I Can Home Care LLC. nwatson at Lord I Can Home Care LLC.com. Back to our guest, Esther Taki. So, Esther, as a child who is a Christian, lives in with African parents, do you have any siblings?
I have 3 younger siblings.
Were you sort of usually with the African concept, the older person, are you the oldest or the youngest?
The oldest.
Usually the oldest sort of become a second mother or father, sort of. Did you grow up some like that? When you went to college, did you at any point think that you were in a wrong body?
I don't understand as in wrong
With
body.
the sexuality situation in United States and the world at large, people tend to say, I don't fit in. I should have been a male instead of a female and stuff like that. Did you ever, or were you ever influenced into something like that?
No, I was never influenced to be anything other than the body that I'm in.
Well, did you have friends who had issues with gender identity?
No, all of my friends were proud to be the gender that they were too. So.
And did you also have other people who came to you and said, Esther, this is my situation. Can you help me out? Is there something, you know, I understand your friends were not, but did you have, say, acquaintances, other people who came to you with issues like, I want to go to my parents and let them know who I truly am, but I don't know what to do? Did you ever experience something like that?
No, no.
Wow. Were your parents gainfully employed?
My mom always had a job. She would have like 2 or 3 jobs just to support the four of us. So yeah.
And when your parents have jobs in, say, they went overtime, you said your mom had two, three jobs.
Mhm.
If she left you all, who was there to care for the kids?
It was just us four.
As children, or now that you're grown?
Now that we're grown, it was
Oh, so
just
as
us
children, there was
four.
always somebody with you.
Yeah, we would have at least an adult in the house.
Okay. Did you ever go for babysitting as a child? Did you go to somebody to be babysat?
It depends. So yeah, we would always have someone either babysit us or someone come to the house. We would either go or come to someone.
And did you ever experience where when you guys went to whoever your babysitter was or whoever came to babysit you, coming in with anything other than what your parents had taught you? Like, let's say the person came in and tried to, touch you or your siblings or something like that. Did you ever have anything like that ever happen to any of you?
No,
Were you guys exposed to, say, drugs either at home, at school, in college? Was there anything like that growing up?
no,
Wow, you had a good upbringing then. I know that. And did you ever have any friends who ever came to you and said, "Listen, I got issues because um, I went through this, I went through that."
no.
Okay. Now that you're grown, you will probably after school become a parent one day yourself.
Mm.
What are some of the things that you would want to do differently from what your parents did?
I think I would allow my kids to socialize more with other children in their age group. I would also learn how to apologize to my children. Not every day has to be a yelling match. So I would learn how to apologize, show a little bit more compassion. Yeah.
Would you would you want to sort of grow them up in a typical African environment like what you got, or nothing African at all?
No, there can be a balance. So there wasn't a lot of apologies growing up. There wasn't also because we're always going to either your babysitters or someone's coming to watch you. You don't always have your parents in the picture, so you have to kind of grow up by yourself. So I would like to have more of a presence in my children's life. I would also apologize to them, show more compassion, let them understand that it's okay to make mistakes.
How was your education? Talking about the elementary school,
Mhm.
did you have any issues with any of the teachers or even your classmates saying you have an accent?
Yeah, all the time.
It looks like every African child who grows up with African parents in diaspora sort of has a distinct accent, and somehow it rubs on you and you take it to school. Were you bullied from that?
No, I wasn't bullied. So the first elementary school that I was at, there was a lot of Hispanic kids too, so they also had like accents. Then the second elementary school that I went to, it wasn't just black people, it was like Africans and Indians. So we all had accents. So we weren't really bullied. It was just like that one kid who thinks that they were better than the rest of us because they were American that they would bully us. But the rest of us, we all had accents. None of us noticed it.
Well, you just told us that you're studying to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever had a patient at 5 years old, what kind of doctor anyway are you going to be? I'm sorry.
I'm just a doctor of nursing. I'm doing family nurse practitioner.
Okay. So you're going to be able to treat children.
Yeah.
If a child with the new law that, or the new stuff that is coming up in our land, if a parent came to you and said, my 5 year old needs a sex change, what would you do as a doctor?
A 5-year-old needs a sex change.
Yes.
Well, as a family nurse practitioner, the only thing that I can really do is to either refer them to someone who specializes in transgender things. As a family nurse practitioner, that's not really in my role to determine if a 5-year-old can get a sex change. They would have to just be referred to a specialist who understands that a little bit more than I would.
If you grow up,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're grown now. So you got married, have your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Your kid came to you one day and says, Mom, I want to be my true self.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to tell? And says, um, John, but I want to be Joanna. What are you going to say?
I feel like this is a very difficult question. um, I don't know. Honestly, I wouldn't know what to say. That's my honest opinion. I wouldn't know. I think I would have to like think about it and pray on it because I don't know what I would say.
If your child came to you as a teenager and said, Mom, I have a boyfriend, whatever. I want to come bring in my friend, and came home with a child of the same sex, what would you do?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know.
What part of your growing up will you change besides letting your children socialize more? What else will you do with your own children?
Just be more compassionate and understanding and have more patience. Um, I don't think I don't think my parents understood that I had a different life. So as a kid growing up in America to African parents, you have to learn how to manage your African parents, but you also have to learn manage the culture that happens outside of your household. So there wasn't a lot of understanding and a lot of patience. I don't think that my parents understood what I was going through during school versus what's happening at home. I don't think a lot of parents, doesn't matter the culture, understand what's going on at home versus what's going on at school. So I would be more compassionate. I would definitely be more understanding, definitely have more patience. So growing up, you had to have A's. I'm pretty sure that's how a lot of African parents are. Like my Nigerian friend, she had to have A's growing up. You had to be the top of your class. You come home with like a B or C, there's no questions. Why did you come home with the B or C? There's no trying to understand why did you come home with the B or C. There's no questions as to why are you failing. For all you know, some kid could have thrown me underneath the bus that day, and I and I could have like. There's so many reasons why I probably didn't get that A. But there's no questions as to why. It's just this is what you're supposed to do. You don't have bills. You don't have to work. You're supposed to just be learning. So, yeah, because not everybody's top of their class. If everybody's top of their class, then there's really no top. It's just class. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
you.
So,
I got you. So,
yeah.
but what were some of the stress that you had as a child and then as a college kid, and now that you are on your own, sort of?
Yeah, so as a child, the stress that you have as a child is again, you're trying to navigate two different cultures. The kids at school are like, "Oh, you're too African." But you're really not that African because you're growing up with those kids that you're in elementary school. The only thing that is different is, like, for me, I don't speak the language, right? So the only thing different that anybody can really quote unquote say was different was the food that I eat. I'm not eating mashed potatoes for lunch. I don't bring mashed potatoes to lunch. I'm bringing jollof. No one understands that I'm bringing jollof. They're like, oh, what's that? So as a kid, it's kind of like, oh, I'm definitely different from the rest of you guys. Growing up middle school and high school, now I'm coming more aware. Like, my eyes are open. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not like a regular African American kid. I'm not going through what African American kids. I'm an African kid. My parents are different. So now it's like I have to find friends, because middle school and high school, you're navigating, which friend group am I going to be in? Am I going to be that girl, or am I going to be that nerd? Like, you're trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And so then you also have your parents in the back of your ear, like, go to school, make A's, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it's like you're navigating your academic life because your parents need you to be the top, but then you're also navigating that you want to be, every girl wants to be pretty and popular. But in middle school, if you're African,
Oh, really?
nobody wants the African girl to. You have to really be like the pretty African girl to be popular. And where I grew up, I was not the pretty. My parents had hand me downs, like,
Wow.
so it was difficult. Then as I'm growing up, I became a college student. I'm a graduate student. So now it's like the things that I've embarked as a child and as a person who's in middle school and high school, and then I'm navigating into college, and I'm navigating into graduate school. It's like the things that my parents wanted me to do, being top of the class, it helped me, right? But now I'm struggling. I'm struggling on socializing. I'm struggling on how to relate to my peers, because in the back of my mind, it's like I've always been the top of my class academically. But when you get into the real world, like in America, when you get to the real world, your academics don't matter. It's how you network. How you network is how you're going to get your businesses. How you network is how you're going to get those connections that you need to be to get on top. So now I have to learn how to network with people who can help me get into places that I want to be in the spaces that I want to be in. So now I have to learn how to, like, get myself out of the academic role. Because when you're younger, it's like the best way to impress your parents, especially African parents, is to be the top of your class. But when you get to 25 and you're in grad school, nobody's going to be asking you, did you get an A? No one's going to be like, did you pass this test? No, they're going to say, who do you know who's going to get you into the position that you want to be for tomorrow? So, yeah, that's what I'm currently struggling with now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is news to us African parents, and we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to come back and talk to Esther Taki some more. It's amazing. I'm getting all this knowledge, and make sure you're taking all these in. Our children are getting all A's, but they're struggling socially. We need that. We need our children to be balanced. We can't have them making all A's, getting to the top, and then social wise being bankrupt. What kind of kids are we raising? We have to create a balance in our homes. We can't do this no more. Please hold on. We're going to take a short commercial break, like I said, and we'll be right back. This is In Times Like These, and I am Nana Watson, your host, and we're on A2 TV. You're watching A2 TV, and I'm Nana Watson, your host. Lord I Can, our sponsors, is a home care company that brings trained aides and companions to your home to care for your loved ones. If you're looking for a job as an aide, click on LordICanHomeCareLLC.com and start with your application. And if you're looking for somebody to care for your loved one, homebound, companionship, hospice, Lord I Can Home Care LLC is a place to go. Once again, this is A2 TV, and you're on In Times Like. Mrs. Tataki, I'm loving this. All A's socially bankrupt. That's not good for the African parent, because the African parent, we love to socialize, we love to do all that. So for our kids not to be able to socialize, it's a problem. And I believe every African parent that is watching us today is taking notes of these. Did you struggle with, say, or were you exposed to drugs and stuff like that? Or did you have any friends who were into stuff like that? Primary level,
No.
high school level, college?
No. For me, I think it's just from like me though. I didn't grow up with like being exposed to drugs at a primary level or anything like that. My first encounter probably being exposed to drugs was in college, but that's just college things. I know other people have experienced drugs exposure from like a younger age, but not for me.
How about like teenage sexual sex and stuff like that? Teenage, people have boyfriends as early as 8 years old, 6 years old. I mean, people
Um,
do things and then they
no.
end up with
So the
situations.
friends that I grew up with, we were all scared of our parents too. So we tried not to get in trouble. I grew up with Nigerian friends and Haitian friends. We were all just kind of like we didn't want to cause any trouble in our household. So we literally tried to stay as good as possible. So
As a grad student and working towards becoming a doctor, do you are you at your clinical level where you see patients, or
mhm.
so have you seen like the patient? I'm not trying to say put anybody's business out there, but do you see young people, I mean pediatrics, patients where they are into, say, drugs or alcohol or sex,
Yeah, definitely. Some of pediatric clinicals was in an area that was it's an underserved area. Most of the patients that come in are definitely depending on the government to help them. So some of the things that I've noticed that I would consider as a high risk are that most of the patients that come in do have an exposure to drugs and alcohol. They do have an exposure to teenage pregnancy, sex, all of that things. They also have eating disorders. So that's definitely something that I've noticed working in like an urban area.
So when they come to you to your practice, do they tell you how, or it's just because it's an unserved area? Anything is, it's like that is their norm, that's their lifestyle.
So, I wouldn't say that it's just like their norm or it's their lifestyle. I think it's just the culture that's in that area. So for example, if you're in a heavily black populated area, or you're a heavily populated Hispanic area, um, those areas don't get as much as attention from the government. Like they don't have enough funding sometimes. So there's just those people are literally trying to survive. There's nothing else that they can do but survive. So to help them survive, some of them get on drugs, alcohol, use sex, develop eating disorders. But you compare them to white counterparts and you notice that in the white districts, there's funding in the schools. They're allowed to have proper health care. They're able to get the things that they need to excel in life. It's all more like a government issue.
So
That's in
that
my
means that it's
opinion.
poverty that's causing these neighborhoods.
Yeah, poverty is definitely one of the reasons why a lot of people do what they do. Like that's some of the reasons why a lot of people just they're trying to escape. That's really it. So when you're trying to escape, you do anything to make yourself feel better.
Is it true that African Americans and Africans, when you were growing up, you
mhm.
couldn't mix properly because one group was looking down on the other group?
Definitely.
So were the Africans looking down on the African Americans, or were the African Americans looking down, or both of you had the same issue? So I'm looking down and you're looking down, and
I think we're all looking down. So when you're younger, they don't do it now. Everybody wants to be African. Everybody wants to be
wow,
very, very much African. But when you're younger and you're growing up, you get called. There was this one thing you get called African booty scratcher.
what?
Yeah, we used to. There was a couple of us that used to get called that. It was like such an insult. You cannot. It, you find out you're African, you get labeled that. That's like one of the most popular insults that you get growing up. But now that we're all older, everybody wants to be African. Nobody wants to be an African booty scratcher. Now Africa is like the place to go. You have to go and understand your roots. You have to go and understand who your ancestors. Like, okay, we get it.
Wow.
I understand. I remember in high school, me and my friend, we were having this conversation with one of our friends who's African American. And I was like, I was always like, oh, like, I understand who I am. Like, my parents raised me up in a Ghanaian household. I understand some of the cultures. I understand some of the traditions. I know who I am. Like, that's what made me, right? And she made a comment that made me like, I wasn't looking down on African Americans. It's just that when you get bullied constantly by people who think that they're better than you, and there's no reason why. It's just that's how they were raised too. So they just want to bully other people. When you get older, you kind of have to build yourself up and be strong. Like, okay, you guys think I'm better than you, but I'm better than you too. At least I know who I am, right? At least I know who my girl. Like, it's like that. But one day when I was in high school, my African American friend, she made a comment. She was like, I wish I knew who I was. I wish I knew who my roots were. I wish I knew this and this. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, wow, you guys really don't know who you guys were just snatched away. You don't know who you are. It's very sad. But I do think that there is like this, there's not enough. I like Africans want to try, right? And
Yeah.
from my perspective, Africans do try with African Americans to build a relationship, to build a bond. But then also in the back of my mind, I feel like sometimes African Americans, in the back of my mind, African Americans don't want to help, right?
That's how you see it.
That's how I see it. Like I said, everything in America is so individualized. Everybody's just thinking about themselves. Um, but for me, I feel like coming from an African mindset, we're all raised on we're all family oriented. It's not just even Africans, it's Asian people, it's Indian people, it's Hispanic people. We're all family oriented, right? Our family is everything. We're doing everything to provide for our family. That's what our purpose is. But for everybody in America, everybody's so individualized. It's like, is this gonna benefit me? Is this just for me? Me. It's kind of like, why? So yeah.
Wow.
It depends.
So now I can tell the African American that we can all come together and do what we are supposed to do, because that is the thing now. They try to tell me that we don't want to come together with them, but from what you're saying, we're going to try and bridge it. What would you do on the last stick? This is going to be the last question for you. What would you do to better your community, to shine light on some of these things? Um, what would you tell your young self? I want you to say something that will tell your young self or the young person watching you today, and then also be able to also tell the parent that is watching you, and also be able to tell the African American that, hey, you are my family. Three things: your young self, the parent that is watching you, and the African American. We are family.
Okay. I guess what I would tell my young self is to definitely be patient. There's gonna be a time in your life where you have to figure out what you want to do and who you want to be and actually stand up for yourself. That time will come. It's gonna be difficult because you're fighting different cultures and you're fighting different beliefs, but It'll be okay. I think I would tell African parents it's just to be more patient and understanding. Um, if you're already patient and understanding, congratulations to you. But to the ones who are very strict, patient and understanding goes a long way. Um, and to the African Americans, I mean, I have African American friends. No, I guess to the African Americans, you're always welcome. Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. This is A2 TV, and I am Nana Watson. You're watching In Times Like These. We spoke to Miss Esther Taki, soon to be doctor. Congratulations on that. And if you invite us, we'll be at your graduation. Hope to catch you again next Saturday, same time, 6 p.m. And have a good night. I am Nana Watson, and you're watching A2 TV in times like these. Bye for now.